right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our live podcast production with Startup San Diego 2024. Round of applause.
Round of applause for 2024 Startup San Diego.
It's day one in Carlsbad. We have a full week ahead of us. But of course, we're here to jump us off and interview 5 amazing founders. Before we get into it, though, my name is Rylie Jennings. I'm the host of Baddies Mean Business. I share a waterfall of wisdom for women, from women, and for the girls. I also am the fractional events director for the Stella Foundation, where we help women raise capital as well as scale their businesses. And then also I run events around the community. But I'm not alone.
You got like 10 jobs, man.
No, I know.
Yeah, the flight attendant, the stewardess, the show, like how many jobs you got?
My family doesn't even know what I do for a living, to be honest. That's why I podcast, so they can go listen to it. But I'm not alone. Come on, Taryell.
Taryell Simmons here with the founder of Rise Urban Nation. And my podcast is really to amplify the voices of Black and Pan-African entrepreneurs, activists, social activists,
all of
it, nonprofit leaders. Because I noticed that, when we go around and hear, at least when I first got into the startup scene, I met so many amazing entrepreneurs and just people just creating things. And I was like, yo, we need to tell your story. Because I used to go out and work with students. And what I tried to do was get federal funding to different programs, to different students in lower income neighborhoods so they can get them to different career pathways. And a lot of our students couldn't be what they couldn't see. So they had a hard time envisioning themselves in that tech career because they didn't see anybody that looked like them. So I help amplify those voices. So Rise Urban Nation, check out the podcast.
Absolutely. We both became friends very quickly because of our podcast, but we have a completely different audiences typically, but we're merging them together here today for a beautiful combination of stories. And so we're really excited.
Yeah.
But we're going to have a lot of interactivity. So just so you guys know how this works, this is our second year doing this live podcast for Startup Week. What we love to do is we love as much engagement from the audience as possible. Of course, we're interviewing the founders, but we're not the only ones interviewing them in the end. We have a mic that's set up right over here. And so after a quick little Q&A or a quick interview with each founder, we absolutely welcome each of you to join in on the conversation and ask your questions. And so we'll open things up to the audience, and then you are more than welcome to ask your questions directly to our founder. So don't be afraid.
And don't be shy.
Scary.
There's no such thing as a dumb question.
None. Absolutely none. It's obviously all on video and recorded. And so we just want to make this feel like a community event, which it is. And
don't worry, we'll make you Instagram famous when we put your little clip of your
some viral moments, I will say.
And wait. And then there's also a QR code there. So do us a favor, click on our podcast, give us a like, a thumbs up, write a comment or two about your experience with the live podcast today or with just interacting with us.
Send me a message. I'm a words of affirmation girl. I love to hear it. Okay. All right. We're going to bring up our very first founder for the evening. Miss Keely Antonio, the founder of FeelSwell Experiences. Hi, Keely.
You brought your own fan club?
I know.
I don't know about that.
I love that.
Thank you all so much for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
This is going to be fun. We were talking about this. We're very conversational here. It doesn't need to be stiff. We just want to get to know you and get to know your story. And so first things first, we do want to just get to know you. What's your background and who were you before you became a founder?
Who was I? Gosh, I was a different person. This is the most personal development you will ever do in your entire life, and it changes you.
Round of applause for that. Come on.
You all know.
So I graduated in 2020. So let me just set the scene for you. Where were you all in 2020? I was trying to figure it out. I was also working my first full-time corporate job while I was a senior in college. And I looked around at everyone above me and I saw them struggling. And I saw them severely burnt out. And I was dealing with my own burnout and isolation. And I knew there had to be a different way. I thought about my mom in these moments of 30 plus years in corporate, severe health issues, and I didn't want to do that. So I walked away. It forced me to leave my role. I started to do a lot of research around why we burn out, how to understand our nervous system, how we can heal from these experiences of a lot of stress and trauma and isolation, especially during the time that we all went through. And so I'm a second-time founder. The first company that I started was really working with individuals, supporting them, helping them. We helped hundreds of individuals around the world creating programs, events, retreats. And in the last year, I've been led back to building upon that foundation and creating FeelSwell experiences, which is corporate event management and supporting businesses and companies to create nature-focused experiences and really align them with coming back to nature, community, especially in this remote world. So it's been a journey, but all of my experience through burnout and overwhelm and looking at, that 90% of Americans spend their lives indoors has led to this realization that we have to get back outside. We have to start taking care of each other. And we're really making a dent in the workplace. So
touch some grass today.
Wow. Did you say 97%?
Americans spend 90% of their lives indoors.
Wow, 90%. Yeah. How many of you spend a majority of your life indoor right now? Raise your hands. So look, there's a test. That's the 90% right there. How many of you in 2020 was reflecting on how much time you spend indoors and evaluating in life? Like, what am I doing in life?
No, none of you baked bread.
Oh. That part right there. Don't get me started on Zoom meetings. Absolutely not. This is fascinating to me because I had a similar conversation with Village Up. Shout out to Village Up. They're somewhere around here. And we had this conversation around founders wellness, not just corporate wellness, but founders wellness too, of the burnout because of that hustle and grind culture. And then for women, they started talking about what do we call it? Imposter syndrome, right? How much when you look at the data, what is the data telling you around these things about the corporate experience, the grind culture, and what do we need to really do to start shifting that narrative?
That's a great question. So when I started doing research, I was like, I can't be alone in this. Graduating in 2020, I'm obviously part of the Gen Z cohort, which is kind of fun, but everyone's got something to say about Gen Z. So when I started doing research, I saw that in the next 5 years, 58% of the workforce will be Gen Z and millennials, yet 70% are set to leave the roles within 2 years due to burnout. So when you look at that number right there, I'm like, we can get ahead of this. We can support people. I genuinely became an accidental entrepreneur because of this experience. And I thought about what I would have wanted in order to stay and be a part of something. I think as humans in general, whether you're a founder, whether you work in corporate, whether you're doing a little bit of both, it doesn't matter where we are. We need human connection. We need people. And more teams are moving remote. So how do we actually create experiences? And when we do get together, they're not just in those traditional conference rooms with the fluorescent light that is flickering and giving you a headache, and it's freezing because the air conditioning's on so high, right? These are not inspired, creative places to be. These are places that prevent us and put us in a bigger box than we were already in. So how do we get people outside of that? And when we see what happens when people go into nature, their stress reduces by 73%. So
73%?
73%.
All I got to do is be outside and I reduce 73%. Okay, everybody, we're going outside right now.
Come on. Way cheaper than therapy. Let's go.
So and to have this as a tool to be able to create, experiences and gatherings and meetings, especially if teams are only getting together once or twice a year, why not make them inspired and creative and exciting, and also bring along this next generation that's really hurting? Like, there's a lot of loneliness. There's a lot of mental health struggles. Like, we're not necessarily in the best place. So when we do have time together, can we sit around a campfire again? Can we, go for a walk in nature and break down some of these barriers that are currently there? I think about the generation that graduated, right? 2020, 2021, 2022, as we kept going here. And there's a lot of needs in the developmental space of how do we actually nurture, transfer knowledge to each other when we're not seeing each other and walking, to a meeting together or, grabbing lunch together. So those are the things I started to think about when it came to this hustle culture, the grind, and how can we do it better and more fun?
I'm also thinking how that creates more creativity, more productivity too. The sharing of ideas, and it's not in silos, but it's working in a collaborative element as well.
And something I was thinking about, and so because I work with a lot of female founders, and there's a lot of different companies, not just female founders, just founders in general. And what's interesting about what's happening is there's this uprise of the buzzword, the loneliness. And I feel like there's a lot of like tech enabled businesses that are coming out to solve this problem, but there's some things that tech cannot solve. And so something I'm very curious about is the there was this news outlet that came up, and there was like that there's the death of the happy hour, the death of the 5 p.m. You go with your coworkers after work because everyone's half virtual or hybrid or whatever it may be. And who would have ever thought that the news would ever be covering something as the death of a happy hour? And so there's interconnectivity and in-person opportunities that people may be overseeing. You've been highly covered by PR and news outlets. Was it the Today Show that I saw? And so something I want to learn from you is just like, what have you found surprising with those conversations with those large outlets when it comes to like the grand scheme of being in person versus something that's like a tech-enabled solution?
Yeah, I think everyone is so curious about what we do in these situations. This is the first time we're all living through this. And if you ask anyone, I've done so much research in each generation that's been really important in the foundation of building our business is, can we talk to every cohort, right? All the way from boomers who are retiring 60,000 per week to Gen Z, and understand how we meet people where they are when it comes to actually getting together. So I think one thing that's missing is that we're not actually speaking with each other and asking each other, what is it that, you would like to see, or what is it that makes you feel supported in these environments? And there's a really big gap in communication. So when I talk, to CNBC, and we're talking about bosses and managers and how do we create these kinds of spaces, it's really important to identify the communication gap between everybody, because because we have to be even more intentional, since we're not, in person. We're not looking at each other. You can't see my body language when we're on the phone, or maybe my camera's turned off on Teams or Zoom. So how do we get really clear in our communication and start understanding the right questions to ask each other to just meet each other where we are? That's really the biggest thing.
I remember back, well, so Keely and I met for the very first time. We was all virtual. We met the first time at Women's Venture Summit, and there's this constant thing that happens where you see somebody virtually, but you're meeting them for the first time all over again when it comes to in person. So you get 2 meetings with each person, and we've grown used to the fact that like when it comes to that second interaction in person, it's just like that used to be such a weird experience, but we've gotten so used to that. And so that's what I find so interesting about this is like when someone's like, oh, like when it comes to corporate event planning, like that's been as old as time, that's always existed, but there's different approach to it because the need is different too. And so that's something that I found like super interesting ever since.
Yeah, I second that, because when we went from the Zoom culture, right, of always being on Zoom, and then you meet somebody in person, and it's a whole different energy. I don't know. Do you feel that way? It's like a whole different energy. And also, there's some people, you ever do this on the Zoom call where you like, oh man, you try to guess what it would be like to meet that person in person, or is it just me? No, am
No,
I the
it's
only
me
one?
too.
And then you meet somebody. I met one person that was like, they were a lot taller than I thought they would be in person.
And like
I
your
was like,
energy was at least 6 foot.
yeah,
Come
yeah.
on.
Like on the Zoom call, they had tall girl energy, but like but they were shorter than what they were in the Zoom call. I was like, oh man, I thought you were really tall. But I digress. all to get back to, I know we got entrepreneurs here. How many of you are entrepreneurs? Startup entrepreneurs. Okay.
We have a lot. There we
All
go.
right, all right. How many of you are in programs? Do programs for entrepreneurs? Raise your hand. How
There you
many
go.
of you are venture capitalists in the room?
They never
Don't
raise
be
their
shy,
hand.
VCs. Okay, we got.
Like you guys never raise your hand.
Right.
Whatever.
So now I just wanted to see what the demographic is. So I know some of them are like, yeah, I hear you, but I got this startup and I gotta be a founder, I gotta be a fundraiser, I gotta be all these different things. How do I get intentional? What's one easy thing I could do as a startup founder or somebody who's facilitating a program to be intentional about this work? Because I think we all want it, but we just don't know where to start and know how. Give us one way we can start to really be intentional about integrating this in the work that we do.
Yeah, I think whoever's attending the events, whoever's in your circle, and this could be in general, right? This can apply to friendships, life. How do we ask people what it is that they maybe need at this time? And then how do we create an environment that is inspiring and can elevate the experience just a little bit? Every time I do anything in my life, I think about how do I elevate this just a little bit? If I'm going to bake, maybe I put on some music, right? Like whatever it may be, you can apply it to so many different situations. And I think when you have that foundation and you're constantly asking yourself, how can I get the most out of this experience? You elevate it and you make it 10 times better every single time. And that's in anything, wherever you are, whatever role you play, whether you're a parent, whether you're a friend, it doesn't matter. We can always be asking how we elevate the experience just a little bit more.
I love that. Could you share like a success story with something you've been able to do with a corporation or company?
Absolutely. So there's this one company and they always met in this stuffy boardroom, and their employees, they were a little tired of it. You could just tell, like when the CEO came to us, they were like, I don't know what's happening, but every time we leave this event, like the change isn't really shifting, and they're really focused on sales. And so what we did is we took them out on a boat, and then we had a farm to table lunch. And for them to just even have a small shift, like just a half day experience, to go from a stuffy boardroom and them learning and just taking in so much information, for them to be on a boat connecting, not so forced. Who's ever been to like a really cringy event where you're like, ooh, I don't want to like rub the person's shoulders next to me. You know what I mean? Like you're just like, no, thanks. So to be able to be outside, fresh air, the wind's blowing, and then to go eat, a healthy, nourishing lunch together, that was a really special experience. And they saw that people that never spoke on their team were actually talking. It wasn't forced.
I did not know what your voice sounded like. Wait a second.
Right. It wasn't forced. And it was really helpful for them to want to continue to get to know each other, to get together, to support each other with their sales. And that's been a really impactful event. And there's so many more. But I think the thing that it comes down to is FeelSwell experiences. Of course, we want to inspire people to get back into nature. We want to reduce stress. We want to help people, really feel creative. But at the same time, so many of the folks that are planning this are founders, are CEOs, are COOs, working with companies 100 and under. We see so much that they don't even have the space or time to do this. And then when they do create it, right, it's kind of thrown together last minute and they don't even get to participate. So we love also serving CEOs, serving founders, because we see that it does take 50 to 100 hours to plan an event, plan a retreat for their team. And they deserve that time as well to be able to immerse themselves, get to know their employees, and to really be able to take care of them and show up for them. And as founders, at the end of the day, we're always looking for ways to support ourselves so that we can make the impact and support the people around us.
100%. Oh. All right. We're going to take 1 to 2 questions. Is there any questions from the audience? All right. Right here. Feel free to come up to the mic and share. We'll record your voice so we can get nice and loud.
Hi, my name is Alicia. I'm with AInews.com. I think this is fantastic. It's innovative. It's amazing. The only question is, how can we implement some of these ideas that are maybe away from corporate events, that are more in the day-to-day workflows? Because I know time is very limited for CEOs and founders, but it would be really great if we could implement some of these tactics every day, so we wouldn't have that burnout, or wouldn't have just all that stress pile up and have to be released in one event.
That's a great question. Yeah, I think people need to have the tools, right? If you don't have the tools to be able to support the stress and overwhelm that comes with a lot of these really fast-paced jobs and roles, then we can't actually be supportive together. And when we get together in person, it's not so helpful, right? So we work with a lot of amazing partners that do different programming throughout the year that can support and give the tools so that when you do come to an event like this, you're ready to immerse yourself. You have the tools to, just breathe deeply, to slow down, to bring yourself back into having the capacity to be with other people. So that's a great question. And it comes with the addition of that year-round support through having the tools.
Amazing. Is there any other questions? We'll take one more, if anything. If not, I know you got just a quick little sneak peek of Keely, but do not be afraid to walk up to her after this and say hello. We still have 4 founders. And so
Right.
any other questions? Last take.
Hold on, I got one quick question. This shirt. Tell me about this shirt.
You know, I always try to give a little bit of fun camp counselor vibe because
You nailed it.
I want adults to have fun again. I want them to play. I want them to enjoy their lives. So you could think of me as your camp counselor.
Ladies and gentlemen, the adult camp counselor. Give it up.
Keely Antonio, everybody. Great job. Thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you so much.
Wait. Where can people find you? Where can people find you and connect?
Well, now these days I'm on LinkedIn. So Keely
There you
Antonio on LinkedIn. And then also you can go to our website, FeelSwellExperiences.com.
All right. Thank you so much.
One more
Keely.
time.
And we're on to our second founder that will be sharing his story today, Mr. TJ Harris, the founder of BLAC Leadership Alliance Coalition.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's give it up for TJ. Give it up for TJ one time.
Happy to be here. Very happy to be here.
So share, as we always do, we want to get to know you. Not everyone knows what's going on. So share a little bit about you and then also about BLAC.
Absolutely. I am, as they mentioned, TJ Harris. I serve as the executive director of the BLAC Leadership Alliance Coalition. We are a nonprofit organization that is predicated to driving social economic development within the Black community. Through cultural empowerment, economic empowerment programs, BLAC is equipping early professionals with the essential tools, resources, and confidence needed in order to drive lasting sustainability and progress for themselves and their communities. So I am from a small town called Tulsa, Oklahoma. Anybody heard of that place before, Tulsa, Oklahoma? And many of us may know about the significance of that area, that town, with it being one of the greatest massacres to ever take place on American soil, the Tulsa Race Riot. And that is exactly the street that I grew up on. I grew up in that community. It was rebuilt. It is now I won't say a thriving Black Wall Street, but it still exists today. And that's where I'm from. So having those type of humble beginnings, my upbringing was exactly as you all would think it would be like coming from a place like that. Extremely black and white. And being from Tulsa, Oklahoma taught me the importance of economic empowerment and the dangerousness of economic deprivation. So that is what fuels my passion for empowering this community. For far long, these issues have been either ignored or intentionally left out of the conversation. So I am honored and elated to be the executive director of an organization that is dedicated to finding practical solutions. So thank you all so much.
No worries. I'm over here. See, my man, he humble too. He was recently nominated for several different awards. This past was it earlier this week, right?
Last Monday.
Last Monday.
Yes, sir.
For his work in the community, and he's not just the executive director; he's the founder of this wonderful thing.
Yes, sir.
And tell me about that. Like when you finally give me the aha moment when you finally came to that. I'm gonna build this thing that I don't see. And what was the journey like of coming from the ideation phase to the actual putting the programs together and actually putting it into place? Like, what was that? Give me that story. How did that come to be?
I love that question, Taryell. The question was, what was the aha moment for me creating the Black Leadership Alliance Coalition? And I am often asked this question, Taryell, TJ, what started your passion for empowering the Black community? Where does that passion come from? And I often explain it as this. when I became aware of the war that was going on against the Black and brown mind for centuries, I signed my name up for the draft immediately. The moment that I found out there was an active war against my community, I signed my name up for the draft as soon as I could. There was never an aha moment, Taryell. There was never an aha moment. As soon as I learned the history of what happened to these communities, and as soon as I found out it was still going on today, I dedicated all of my time on finding a solution. So when I was in school, as all of us were, when we was in those history classes, and we always say, man, if I was alive back then, I would have did something. And if I was alive back then, I would have, I don't want to hurt my hand.
Don't hurt your hand.
Don't you all know it's still going on right now today? And when I learned that and when I processed that, see, it keeps me up at night. So this is, as you can see, this is my passion work. I have dedicated my life on finding a solution to this. And the solution that I'm referring to is Black, people of color, does not always have to be equivalent and synonymous with inferior. The people in this room right now today, we can change that to where the next generation doesn't have to go through the same thing that we're going through. So with the Black Leadership Alliance Coalition, our target audience, the people that we're looking for, early professionals, emerging leaders, 22 to about 30. That's our target audience. We do not call them the next generation of leaders. I do not believe in that. Since I was in grade school, it was always the next generation, the next generation. Don't you know the next generation never comes? Black is intentional with creating the now generation of leaders. These young people are not having to wait to make their impact. They are ready right now today. They need the confidence, tools, resources, and cultural pride in order to go out there and create that success. And that is what Black is being intentional on creating.
Something I want to say and what's so special about a week like this and a podcast like this is that San Diego has so many definitions of what a founder can be. But the one thing that we all have in common is perspective, point of view, and passion. And we feel your passion and we sense it. And I feel like as for those who have maybe never heard of your efforts before this, I would love to just for you to share if you find one singular story that stands out to you that represents your gasoline to keeping going. You've seen the results of what your work does and you want to continue it. Is there one story that stands out?
Rylie, I wouldn't say one story. I would say every time we get these testimonials from these young people and they say, TJ, I'll be honest, I never heard nobody say stuff like what you saying today. Man, I never had nobody tell me that they believe in me. Man, it'll make you shed a tear. Every single time we get those type of testimonials begging for programs to exist like these, cultural and economic empowerment. Those are the two solutions that we have found as the answer to eradicating this plight for this community. So that's what keeps me up. I understand the severity of this issue. And that is my goal, for everyone to understand how serious this is. We are talking about a group of people possibly being, and I mean this seriously, no exaggeration, being wiped off the face of the earth. And that keeps me pumped up, fired up, and it wakes me up in the morning. So I love it.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me when you're talking, especially with so much passion, it reminds me of Martin Luther King when he has his different speeches. And although the one that we always get played in school was the "I Have a Dream" speech. How many of you heard the "I Have a Dream" speech, Martin Luther King, right? But there's a speech that we don't often hear from Martin Luther King when he talks about him being tired of the integration, and then how he's coming back to DC to get the check for his community because all of the money that was invested in other communities except for the Black community. So like when I hear you speak with passion and testimony, that's what comes to mind. And I often think of, when I think of empowerment, you may have some other things that you could speak to that empower the community. I think of financial literacy, like how we don't has anybody ever got taught financial literacy in high school?
I hired an accountant, to
Like
be honest.
nobody?
Yeah.
Like and I wish like we had more things like that really prepares you for the real world. And I feel like that's something that could be just really economically empowering, when especially for our communities. What do you see as the things that your program teaches that are really strong roadblocks for that empowerment that you speak of? To me, that financial literacy is one that comes to mind, but you might have something different that you feel is the key.
Absolutely. And I love that question, T, because, and I mean this as no affront to any other organizations, the Black Leadership Alliance Coalition is not another organization where you'll be receiving a motivational speech and a talk on financial literacy. That is not the solution to the plight for this community. What BLAC is intentional with is cultural empowerment. That is the foundation of our organization. For us, that looks like empowerment programs that we operate bi-monthly for our young people. In these programs, we are giving these young people a sense of history, heritage, and culture so that they can be proud of. Because if all we are doing is teaching these young people how to turn a wrench, how to do a 1031 exchange, and they still look in the mirror and hate what they see, look in the mirror and still hate the color of their skin, all of our efforts are futile and ineffectual. BLAC is making a foundational improvement into these young people. We can give them all the skills until they turn blue in the face if they still hate the color of their skin and the community they belong to. Success is out the window. BLAC is being intentional with that.
And so what's your call to action to the community as we're wrapping this up? That how it's not just a singular effort from you, but it's a combined effort from everyone here.
Absolutely, absolutely. The tagline for the Black Leadership Alliance Coalition is, all we need is us. All we need is the people in this room today. BLAC. What is a BLAC leader? A BLAC leader is a bold leader advocating for commitment. A BLAC leader is a bold leader advocating for commitment. The solution is so simple, Taryell. These young people need to be affirmed in themselves, racial identity support, and they need to have access to the resources to support themselves and their community. Unfortunately, this country that we all love so much, many people have been intentional with socially engineering people of color to believe that they are inferior. Does that come to a surprise for anybody? No, everybody's aware of that. For centuries, people have been intentional with getting people of color to believe that they are inferior. There must come a day, a group, a person that comes along and changes that system. And that is the ask of the Black Leadership Alliance Coalition.
Man, I once heard somebody said, how do we fix the system. And it was like, oh, we don't fix the system. The system is designed to do what the system does.
It's it's working flawlessly, Taryell. Don't you know it? Yes, sir.
I'm over here thinking, so we'll open it up to questions. So if you have questions, go ahead and come up. You spell the name of this organization very uniquely. How did you come up with the spelling and how you spell it? Tell them how you spell it.
BLAC.
Yeah.
Yes, BLAC. The reason for that, it started with the mission behind the organization. We never derail from the mission. What is that? To give people of color a sense of belongingness and confidence within themselves. Our intention is to get committed leaders in one room and give them the resources needed to change their communities. So with that, we came up with the Black Leadership Alliance Coalition, group of leaders who are all committed to the same goal, improving our communities.
Amazing. Any questions? We'll take 1, 2. If not, thank you so much, TJ Harris, for joining us. Everybody, round of applause for TJ.
But before you go, TJ, tell people where they can find you at. How do we connect with you? How do we support this wonderful mission and organization? You on social media? Where you at?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I can be found on LinkedIn at TJ Harris. The Instagram of the organization is Black Leadership Alliance, again with no K on Black. And BLAC is currently running a fundraiser to raise $10,000 in order to fund these empowerment programs that we just spoke of. It is called the Empower You program. And if you are interested in contributing to that fundraiser, you can support that fundraiser at blackleadership.org/fundraising. Again, blackleadership.org/fundraising. Thank you all so much. I am honored and elated to share stage with such profound leaders and committed souls. So thank you all so much for making the time to be here.
Another round of applause.
Give it a
for
round
TJ
of applause
Harris.
for TJ.
Thank you for joining us. We're bringing on our third founder for the day. Before we begin real quick, though, I just want to give a huge shout out to the Startup San Diego team. Lisa Barnhouse over on her computer, always working. Think she's waiting.
Give it a shout out to Lisa.
There we go, Lisa. Ella, Erica.
Wait.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
She did this louder.
Lisa and her team, they do this around the clock. Half of these people are volunteers and they spend extra time to make sure this happens. 95% are volunteers. So when I say give it up for Lisa, you have to give it up for her and the
Tammy.
team. So
Come
give it
on,
up
Tammy.
for Lisa and her team.
Don't run away, Tammy. Ella, everybody.
This whole thing is a thing of passion, love, dedication. And so we couldn't be thank you to Lisa and your team. Y'all do a wonderful. Lisa, come on up here. Come and say a couple of words to the people. Come say a couple of words to the people.
How are you sleeping?
How are you sleeping?
Thank you. Thanks for coming out. This is exciting. It's our capstone event, this week-long conference kicking off here in Carlsbad. Hope you're coming with us to the other days. We hit Tijuana tomorrow, SDSU on Wednesday.
Across borders.
Yeah. Downtown Crawl on Thursday. And I was informed the politically correct phrase is like downtown stroll or walk, but I'm planning to crawl. And then Friday is out at UCSD. We've got an exciting keynote that night, Erwin Jacobs. So great week. It only happens because of the volunteers. We've got a volunteer board of directors, and then all the people you see in the blue shirts volunteering, and then our sponsors and our speakers who carve time out of their busy days. They all have careers and lives, and they come here to do this so we can highlight the things that we think are important, the things that we're all mission driven, and that's why I do it, because I'm in it for the greater good. Otherwise, I would not be torturing myself the way I do.
Literally.
So thank you for coming, and come and introduce yourself to me if you have time. I'm around. Okay.
Round of applause for Lisa.
Give it up one more time for
Barnhouse.
Lisa. She wasn't expecting to do that. Sometimes I put people on the spot, so but she's great. She's great.
It's kind of our MO. All right. Introducing Miss Dissaya T, the founder of Shroomeats. Go ahead.
Hi, Everybody, thank you for showing up. I mean, I really appreciate when we all come together and make events like this happen. So very happy to be here.
And just a little bit of background. I found Dissaya on LinkedIn like 4 days ago because I wanted a broad range of guests from different industries. And so I was looking in LinkedIn rabbit holes and I found her. And usually you don't get responses, especially when it's something that's happening like 4 days later. And she did. And we got on a quick call and she's been so open-minded. She drove in from Orange County to hang out with us. And so we're so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I actually used to live here, and I still call San Diego my home. So
It'll be your second home, and you brought your husband somewhere around. Is he in the crowd? Like your biggest kid? He's probably still outside there.
I see him by the food. No, I'm just kidding. All right. To get started, I just would love for you to share a little bit about your background, and then what's the background behind Shroomeats?
Of course. Have any of you heard about Shroomeats? So it is a meat alternative made of mushrooms, and I know it's a lot of people are weirded out by the word fungi or mushrooms, but they're actually really sustainable as ingredients. And the reason why I started was because there was a point in my life where I got to, and I was lucky enough to take a break from work and unplug from corporate life, and really looked beyond myself. I did spend a lot of time in nature. I was a scuba diver, and I really saw things change over the past decades. And I told myself I need to be waking up and doing something more meaningful and more, just healthier for our environment. And I'm originally from Thailand, so we have a lot of food, a lot of resources, ingredients. I mean, everything grows there. So I thought, hey, we can do something really, really incredible with mushrooms. So that's when the idea started. And I remember I started molding the clay and going to the co-packers. I'm like, I want burger patties like this made of mushroom. And I just want it to be really delicious, So yeah, so here we are a couple of years later. We have burger patties, we have mushroom balls, and we have ground meat made of mushroom. It looks exactly like meat, but it's not meat, it's mushroom. Yeah.
I'm a personal big fan. I love a good mushroom steak. I'm a carnivore, of course. I'm Polynesian. That doesn't really happen very often. But I love meat, mushroom as a meat alternative. And so I think it's really cool what you're doing. And then I think I read online that part of what you were inspired by is you've always had a background in sustainability. It's always been a part of your forefront of your mission. And so I would love for you to just share about, it's a big jump to go from working in corporate to being a founder. And so what was that initial experience for you? And then could you actually describe where you're at today in that whole journey?
Of course. I originally I studied architecture, and that had nothing to do with food at all. Then I was really interested in sustainability and got really curious about it and got to read the book called Cradle to Cradle. Have you heard of it? It's a very simple idea to explain just looking beyond yourself. This material, this cup of coffee, where does it go next? Everything that we consume, where does it go next? We don't really think about it because it's, we look at our little square right here. So that's when I started learning more about CPG industry, and yeah, we struggled a lot at the beginning when we started the company, but I think
I've share a little story. I love when there's a little
the struggles,
just trauma story that you can share with everyone else.
Oh my god!
Of course, share the trauma that you have gotten past now. Don't get re-traumatized on stage.
Like, hey, my therapist right here. Well, I had no knowledge in food industry. That's what I can say, and a lot of people that I have met in the industry, I was really intimidated at first. I'm a person of color, I'm a woman, and I had no knowledge in food. So the first couple of years was a struggle, but I got through it, and I have met incredible people who are very supportive of who I am, of who they are, and just, the people who are trying to make a change together regardless of your color. So that's been a much bigger goal for all of us. Yeah, I mean, they're called Included Community, if you've heard of it. It's a bunch of BIPOC founders who are in CPG industries, and we're trying to make food and products just better for you and better for the planet. Normally we're at expos, like food expos. Yeah.
We need to get you out to these farmer markets. I'm over here thinking I'm a carnivore, just like my friend here. However, I've had so my sister, she transitioned into being vegan, and she's taken me to all these wonderful restaurants around San Diego. And I think like 2 months ago, I had some mushroom chicken. Well, it was molded just like chicken, and I could not swear. I swear, I forget where it was at. But it tasted just like chicken, but it was mushrooms, y'all. I could not tell a difference. However, I hate to mention the competitor. I want to say, what makes your burgers different from, like, I don't know, an Impossible Burger, which is I know I see in Burger King you can get an Impossible Burger, which is all I guess is vegan patty, but it tastes like meat. What's the difference between your product versus?
And something I want to add on to that is that I think this is a really interesting conversation about entering as a founder in an industry that feels like it has somebody that's kind of surpassed a lot of standards. And so I feel like it can be really easy to feel discouraged when there's somebody in the industry that's so well known. But I would love for you to share that vote of confidence that keeps you going and knowing that yours has something special too.
I can answer both questions. What really keeps me going is myself. It's I really put the effort to. I don't want to say do meditation. You can find just 10 minutes to sit quietly and really gather your thoughts, be grounded, so you can make good decisions throughout the day. And it's really, when you have such a big goal, you can really overwhelm yourself and your team. But when you're able to break this big goal down into small steps and action plans, I think that's just something more doable, something you can take small micro actions towards your goal. That's really important. And of course your team, it's all about team building and having that same goal that we're going together. Did you want me to answer the question about the
I'm just curious.
the product too?
Not to
Okay.
say,
Yeah.
your product. I know your product is amazing, but I'm just as somebody who's trying to get educated. Like, all right, what's the difference?
Yeah, and I forgot to also say I'm not a vegan myself. I eat everything, but the days I don't eat meat, Shroomeats is an incredible option for me because it's I know it's sustainable and I know it's good for me. And the reason why it's good for the consumers is that there are two main things we focus on in our company is the benefits of the consumer's health and the benefits of the planet's health. So our products are made of only 6 ingredients. You can read and pronounce all of them, and I will bet you within 2 seconds. It's very simple. We're not using any processed ingredients. It's not artificially made. It's the power of nature. It will absorb any flavors, and that's what I really love about mushrooms. And do you guys, any of you like mushrooms? Do you cook
Yes.
with mushrooms a lot?
We got a lot of mushroom lovers out here.
For consumption.
Right, and you know how well they absorb the flavors. So that's the idea where we try to innovate something that's familiar to the consumers. And I think too the when you talk about sustainability, again, it's such a big goal, big idea. So our challenge is, how do we make sustainability more accessible and more familiar to consumers?
And that's something that's interesting too, because it's not when you think about transitioning your dietary habits, which I switch over to like vegan diets when it comes to just like the feeling of just feeling cleaner. Because it's like, it's not even because of many deeper like motivations behind sustainability for me personally, but what it is that you genuinely feel better when you're doing it. And so for you, what have you learned as a founder when it comes to communicating with your customers, and how have things kind of evolved, and what milestones have you accomplished because of that?
Okay. I've actually gone around to do demos, like sampling, and talk to the customers in stores myself. And what is really important these days is that we want simple ingredients. You want to understand what you're eating. You want to know all the ingredients, and people care more about that. The younger generation, the younger shoppers, they actually care more about the the all the holders. So the product as a whole is not just what's serving me, but where did it come from? How was it made? How is it transported? And what happens to the food waste? So the complete cycle of food production. But when I go out and talk to people, what's important for them is how easy is it to make? How good is it for them? And really, what's in it for them? That's the first thing. Then, what's in it for our planet that we live on? And a lot of times we don't think about it because it's such a big, broad idea. But we're here, we're in it.
It's such an interesting way to attack the problem. I love it.
Yeah, and I'm amazed that there's only 7 ingredients in this thing, because I feel like anytime
Six.
Sorry, I apologize. I gave you one extra. I apologize.
Can I pronounce them all?
Yeah, that all pronounceable, because like you go, especially in the US, you look at the back of boxes these days, there's at least 12 minimum, and at least 5 of them I can't
Half
pronounce.
of them are in
and I don't know what
Latin.
they-
It's just
Yeah.
like I don't know.
I need Latin, or I need a law degree to be able to read. All right,
Yeah.
well, I know they're trying to wrap up for the next session. So, any questions? Somebody, come on up.
All right, we have one
We
coming
have a
up.
question.
We're here till 4, FYI.
What?
Yes, there's an open session happening actually right now. So feel free to look at your agenda and your schedule if there's any that you'd like to attend. If you want to hang out with us because we're just that cool, you can do that too.
All right.
Star, shine, Lisa.
Go ahead. Shine away.
Hi. My name is Matt, and wanted to ask how you kind of tackle the, I guess what I would call the education aspect of more plant-based eating, because so many people are just used to eating meat on a day-to-day basis. And it can seem very foreign or even scary to change up something that is so integral to your day-to-day life. How do you go about making it, I guess, okay to try something new like this, or to encourage people to try something new like this?
Thank you, Matt. Right. It is a challenge for a plant-based company like us to to not get comments like, "Oh, you're a vegan," and I'm not. I think we have been putting labels on everything, and that's really separates us. And also, when you think about being vegan or not, or carnivore or not, it puts this extreme idea of consumerism, and I think if you when you feel a little bit more relatable to the consumers, for example, I'm not a vegan, and yes, I get comments from people who are 100% vegans, but how do you incorporate that little bit of ingredient, that little bit of mushroom? It's just, don't think about it as being vegan or not. Think about it as an ingredient that's healthier for you, that's more sustainable for you, and just kind of keep that balance of your diet. So yeah, just in general, I never really go on the extreme side of you have to eat this and not eat meat at all, because we need the balance in our in our foods, and that keeps us healthy. I hope I answered your question.
I like it from a wellness standpoint, because even though I'm a carnivore, like, I like the fact that I have this alternative that gives me another way to get my nutrients and protein and still fit it into my lifestyle and still get that meat craving, but not have to turn vegan to do so.
I feel like there's a deeper message behind it. Not even try to get poetic about it, but like it's that's just the way life is. Like you don't always need to go rough, right? Which is really ironic of this being the year that it is.
This election season.
It's a lot. There's a lot of gray area. Like things are more complex than that, and so it's not, when it comes to these brands that are similar to yours, it's not about vegan or not. It's literally just like, what do you like to your preference? Like, what do you prefer? You don't have to put yourself in a box. Like, you just do as you please.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. That think outside the frame. And one really awesome, do you still have time? Okay.
Yeah.
We're just one company, within this large movement of mushrooms, but there are a lot more industries who are trying to bring this sustainability to make our planet better, to make our to make all the stakeholders healthier. There's fashion, there's construction, there's food. So we're just We're just one company in the food industry who's really trying to pioneer this idea to make our food system better and, for all of us to live in a more healthy, balanced life.
Amazing.
All right. What's one message you would give to people who are curious about sustainability and maybe even venturing further into this lifestyle? And then where can people connect with you?
Don't be scared of sustainability is the first thing. And the second thing is you can't run away from it. We're in it.
We're in it, everybody.
I hope that didn't scare anybody.
No, I think that's right on time. And then let people know where they can find you and connect with you.
I am on LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn Dissaya, Dissaya. And our website is shroomeats.co. We're also in a couple of stores here in San Diego.
Ooh.
So if
list
you
them out, list them out.
Yeah, if you go in the stores, Sprouts, Chula Vista. We're in independent stores, Windmill Farms, Jensen's. So if you go in there in the plant-based sections, look for Shroomeats. It's orange, beautiful packaging. We're right there.
All right, everybody, round of applause for
Give it up,
Dissaya.
give it up. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Fourth founder, ready to go. You guys are amazing. I know this is a longer show, longer session. And there's currently sessions happening. So we're just so excited to have you here. Of course, this is all recorded. And so this will all be publicized on both of our platforms. And then I think Startup San Diego said they would too. Well, I'm pretty sure we saw that in the email somewhere. If not, we'll talk to them.
They will.
They will.
We'll figure this thing out.
But anyway, so this is an only opportunity, but we be here because you get to be a part of the action. So like a reminder for anyone who is new, we have a microphone over here that you're more than welcome to come and ask a question to our founders. Be a part of the show. We're not the only ones interviewing.
We
All
encourage it. We encourage it.
100%. We're tired. All right. Introducing Miss Olivia Rutman, the founder of Kids Care Finder. Hello, Olivia.
Hey, thanks for having me,
Round of
guys.
Give it up a round of applause.
Oh,
Look at
thank
you got a fan club
Thank
already.
you. What a good room.
No introduction needed.
Good energy.
Of
Yes.
course. A little background with Olivia and I. She is a member of the Stella Foundation. We help female founders raise capital. She was also a finalist for the Angel Conference that was at University of San Diego earlier this year as well. You were the People's Choice. The people loved
We
you.
were the People's Choice winner. Yes.
100%. But tell a little bit about you and then also Kids Care Finder.
Yeah, so I'm a born and raised San Diegan. So Startup San Diego is very much an important organization for me. I actually spent most of my professional career in banking, so a little bit less sexy than the startup
we love our
world, but you know,
bankers.
it gives you a good foundation of business and leadership and sales and all that good stuff.
Look, you about to have all of them asking you about banking
I
here in a
know.
second. Like, all right, so you used to be a
Hold up.
banker, right?
Hold up.
I don't work in a branch. I never touched your money. You know, yeah. So, but then 15 years later, made a pretty big transition into the startup world. So, yeah.
Amazing. And a little bit of background about Kids Care Finder.
So Kids Care Finder is really a new kind of childcare platform that connects parents with all of the different child-related services they need for their kids as they grow up. So if you think of kind of like Angie's List for all of your home services, right? We're trying to be that for kids. So every time they have a new need, whether it's camp, sports, after-school care, childcare, we've got you covered.
I need to know this backstory now. How does somebody go from banking to this? Why did you start this company?
So somebody had 3 children, 3 and under.
Get out.
She's somebody.
So
In
coming
San
out of
Diego?
COVID.
That's like 3 house payments.
Yep. Well, you know, I didn't plan this all super well. It just sort of, you know, it was COVID-y and there wasn't a lot to do. And then there was 3 kids. So,
Boom.
yeah, they all had different childcare needs at different times. And it was like, holy cow, this is impossible. I was on maternity leave with my 3rd baby and trying to figure out care options for the other 2, which took half my leave to find one thing for one kid. Then they're starting to ask about sports and swim lessons, and I had to start all over again for the 2nd kid. Hadn't even started thinking about the baby. I'm like, I want him to stay home, but I got 2. I can't afford a nanny full-time too, right? And why is no one doing nanny share? So it was just like a frantic panic for months that was like, oh my gosh, why is there not one place that parents can go for all this stuff and actually be able to filter by what you need and when you need it and by age or schedule or budget or whatever to just find somebody that met your needs? And so the moment of frustration sort of became the idea, and just figured, well, we can't not have this. So let's get to work.
As a parent who survived COVID, I must attest that I was like, hallelujah, when you said that this exists now.
Yeah.
I could have used it way back
I
when.
know.
Well,
when we
until
had
you
to figure out how to be a parent, a teacher, and a daycare provider all at once while in a Zoom call at work. That was crazy.
It was a dark time, but we survived, and now we're making a better way.
Let me know when you get into the plant mom market, and then that will be my entry point, because I'm not very good at that either. Something I want to say, I can talk about your company a million times over, because coming from the future mom's perspective, but I come from a very large family, a lot of women, a lot of people. And I think that the conversation has pivoted to how can I afford childcare, to like which parent should stay home and drop their job so that we can take care of the kids. And I think that is such a dire situation to talk about. So I want you to share a little bit more about what type of conversations you've been having with parents, and how have they been sharing their perspective to help you develop what Kids Care Finder really looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's bonkers, right? Like, it's 2024. And we have the most women ever in the workforce. And like all of that progress is literally at risk right now. And so what I found going through COVID is like, is this problem as bad for everybody else? And I started talking to, many stay-at-home moms and people I knew from preschool. And they're like, we weren't trying to be stay-at-home moms. Like, we had good careers in marketing or in this or that. And we got forced into it because it had to be somebody, and it just ends up falling to us when you have to make that decision, 98% of the time. And as I learn more and more, like over 1 million parents are forced out of their jobs every year because of lack of childcare or ability to afford it. And so when I looked at the solutions out there, it was like, none of these are really helping with cost or supply, which are the two reasons people are forced to leave their jobs. Sure, they're a marketplace, maybe you can find something, but it doesn't make it more affordable, and it doesn't make more care available. And then on top of that, when it comes to costs, like inflation now is finally going down at like 2.5%. Childcare costs are up 6.2%. So it's going completely in the other direction and becoming less and less affordable by the day.
We can't rely on family members anymore. Like, there's everyone, since now that a lot of people work on Zoom, they move around. We're in different locations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't always be around the community. You need to raise a kid.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really powerful.
I'm big in empowering women, and I feel like this is one way to
Taryell's
do it.
also a baddie who means business. Yes.
But what should the conversation be, and what should the conversation we should be having to make sure that we continuously have platforms like this that empower women, that allows them the grace and flexibility to continue on their career, but also still be involved. Like, what does that look like as we continue to scale for organizations like
There's a
yours?
lot of conversations that need to be had, right? Some of it is with employers. Employers need to step up here too, right? And figure out, hey, we've got, flex spending accounts for healthcare. Why don't we have more flex spending accounts for childcare? And there's a big misconception out there that childcare stops at kindergarten. False, not true. It changes, but it doesn't stop, right? So then kids need summer camps. Then we need babysitters. Now we need after school programs. So there's all these different things that people don't really see, and they don't understand that even though people are, yes, having less kids, the market is growing because more and more women are in the workforce. So this is a massive market. This is an incredibly investable market that not nearly enough funding has gone to in the past. And the government is way behind on things that they could be doing too. Child tax credits make a huge difference. Funding for daycare providers and grant opportunities for people to open childcare centers. There's so much more on the employer side, on the private capital side, and on the government side that could be done.
Something I want to throw out there. I know you are actively in the market for VC introductions, meeting people with investors. You know how it goes. And so I would love for you just to share just like where you're at, and like share those proud moments of, you've been through the ringer, wherever, as every founder has been at some point. Like, share those big wins, those proud moments that you've been able to accomplish now.
Yeah. If you've been a founder raising capital the last 12 to 18 months, come find me later for a big hug, because we all deserve a little support through that. But, I do feel the lift coming now, right? Like, for us, we secured a lead angel investor. We've got almost half our round committed now. Not just committed,
clap it up
closed,
for that. That's a
in
big
the bank,
move right there.
In the bank,
So in the bank. So now we're in diligence with a few other funds now. So we're really looking, impact investors, software investors, people who really want to get behind something with a big market that can really scale. So we have a finished product. We have early users. We've started generating revenue. So we're ready to rock and roll. We just need some funding to really be able to hit the scale that we want to. But yeah, we are very much there and in market and actively raising.
Yeah. And if you have questions, come on up. We're going to start
This is your
taking
time.
those questions. This is your time. But one question I got while somebody comes up for that question
Anybody?
is, as a former banker, what advice would you give to these wonderful entrepreneurs trying to raise money?
Well, I would consider myself far from an expert, but what I've seen work, I'm sure everyone gets sick of going to investors and asking for feedback on your deck because you're probably on iteration like 2000. The investors start to contradict each other. It becomes very difficult to see like, what is my pitch and why do I keep making these changes? But what I think is like every person that you meet and talk to, there's usually something really good that they give you that you didn't have before. And then, show up at every pitch competition you can because there's always investors there and you're always going to get better and better on your pitch. And they all know other investors, right? Like sometimes it can feel a little lonely as a software founder in San Diego because we have such a focus on life science and biotech and med device and all of that. But these investors have investor friends. And the more you can be out there pitching and doing everything that you can to get the word out, sometimes all of a sudden it just clicks and you finally get something really good. You get the right info to the right person. And then that creates this momentum. Then some of these people that have been quiet for months, you start sending them updates. Hey, I got a lead. We got this. And then all of a sudden you start getting responses back, meetings set up. And that's kind of where we're at now. So it all of a sudden got very, very busy. So, fundraise way before you're ready, build an updates list and send them regular updates that are meaningful on things that you've accomplished and never miss an opportunity to pitch and tell your story.
I love that advice because I've been blessed to be in the startup world for some time now, just dibbling and dabbling in and out and so forth and being at events like this. There's an old saying that I used to tell to some startup founders. It's that, what's that old saying? It's not what you know, it's
Who you know.
I
There
do you
we
one
go.
better. It's who knows you. Some of my best deals got mentioned because somebody knew of me and they mentioned my name in a room that my feet haven't even touched. So get out there, network, and try to make sure you're making a name for yourself and watch your name get mentioned in the rooms where the deals happen. And that's where you really want to be. That's your sweet spot.
And something I want to add on to that too is of recently, for a little background on me, I used to be a chief of staff for a $12 million fund here in San Diego. And I wasn't the investor, but I was the one who was interacting with all of them on the back end. And I wrote a piece called The Third Party Perspective on how VCs invest. And there is such a nuance. And so I wrote this part where there is so much nuance. And I saw a deal fell through for a founder simply because what we did in due diligence, we contacted a previous investor that wasn't even on their cap table, but we had found out that they had met with them and they had passed. And so we went and communicated with this investor, why did you pass? And we found out that they were the founder themselves did not communicate with their current investors beyond when the paper was signed, the money was in the bank. And so we saw it as a red flag, and that news for that founder passed along many investors that could have really helped fill that round. That's the nuance that you were speaking on, is that they're all connected in some way and communicate. And so it's so important to really just prioritize how you fundraise from the very jump.
Yeah, communicate and ask, right? Because even if somebody passes, people aren't always thinking about who's in my network that can help you. So ask them, even if they pass, even if you're talking to an investor where it doesn't match thesis, don't try to pitch them and get them to change their thesis. That's not going to happen. But say, hey, do you know of any early stage software investors that might like this? Then all of a sudden they're thinking about it, right? Because investors are friends with other investors and they may not always necessarily be thinking that way when they're speaking to you. They kind of think, oh, this isn't a fit for us, right? But hey, is there anyone you can make an introduction to in your network that would be a fit, that would be aligned? And then, use your current investors to help you fundraise, right? Have investor meet and greets where your investors come and speak about why they invested in you. Then you're actually using them, and elevating them and using them as a part of your community to build your company and not just taking a check and run. So that's been really effective.
Amazing.
Love that. All right, who has questions? Come on
Any
up.
questions
Come on up.
at all from the audience?
Don't be shy. There's no such thing as a dumb question.
If not, Olivia Rutman will also be here afterwards. And so do not hesitate to ask her questions. She has a lot of experience behind her belt with this last round. But how can people find you beyond here?
You can follow. So on Instagram, you can follow us at Kids Care Finder. On LinkedIn, same. LinkedIn, Olivia Rutman. I'm the only one, so you can't miss me. But I'm more than happy to connect throughout the week, and I will be pitching in the heavyweight competition on Friday night.
Wait, what? Tell them about the heavyweight competition Friday night.
Okay, so we'll be going on right after Erwin Jacobs. So a lot of pressure following
that's a
the
lot of
Friday
pressure.
keynote. But it will be bracket style, so there'll be 8 founders, and we'll all go head to head with another founder. And the winners from each bracket will then go on to a semifinal round where we'll do a 5-minute pitch with slides. And then the winners of those 2 brackets will go on to a final Q&A, kind of final mic drop round for the winning spots.
Don't want to miss that, ladies and gentlemen.
We do have one question.
Oh, go ahead. Bring your question. Bring your question. Right? Come to the mic. Come
To the mic. We're about to get spicy. That's going to be spicy on Friday.
So my question was, when you did your first pitch, did you have your service already, I guess, like viable, or was it just still in the making?
That's a good question. It was, I don't know if it was fully the MVP version that was fully functional. We did have the code and a kind of a live site. Everything was not fully functioning as it should be. But no, I would start pitching early and often. I would start going to all of these events, talking to investors now, seeing who their thesis is, because it is very meaningful, even especially when you're trying to raise pre-revenue or early revenue. If you've come back with 3 or 4 really solid updates on what you've accomplished since meeting them, that speaks wonders, even more than revenue, because they know you are getting stuff done. So definitely start pitching and raising as soon as you possibly can.
The learning process begins after the initial meeting starts. So
Yeah, and to further answer that question, like one of the first startup weekend I was in, we won the pitch competition, and we didn't have a fully built out MVP. All we had was a pitch deck with like pictures of what a mock-up would look like when we first started pitching. And that's how I got into the startup world, from just that startup weekend, just having that and speaking with VCs.
all right, everybody, round of applause for Olivia.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Meet with her. She is a source of knowledge.
Oh man, I am. Look, this man really needs no introduction. I was in the house today, and I was preparing. I got all my lanyards. I got my first lanyard.
Nice. That's what's
From
up.
2018, brother. And
Really?
so 2018 was when I first met Alex, and he was at Startup Week. Remember?
Startup weekend.
Startup weekend.
Startup weekend. Yeah.
And it was Techstars and Google.
Yep.
You was one of the coaches.
Yep.
My team won. And
Yep.
I had a tech company overnight, speaking with VCs, all that. And that's when I first met this man and coached me at one of my first. So this is a full circle moment, y'all. To being an attendee, now being on stage, interviewing the man that taught me everything I know about the startup world. And I
don't think that that's true. But I will.
Alex,
I
you're
will
so
take the kind
humble.
words, but I don't think that that's true.
This is your moment.
It's like,
to
okay.
not-
Well, just,
This is your moment. I'm trying to give you your flowers.
Okay. All right.
But we have Alex Waters. Tell them about the new company that you starting, the new venture. A little bit about yourself and what this new venture you're starting is going to do.
Cool. So first, I apologize because my throat's a little off.
I was just
so it's
doing
like,
mentor.
hey, are you gonna do like a podcast thing with like no voice? It's like, universe is kind of probably telling me to stop talking. But at any rate, so previous to what I'm doing right now with the program labs is we were at the Jacob Center. We ran a business accelerator program that was there, kind of working on that. And now we're working with foundations and nonprofits to help them build better sort of social impact programs. So there's a whole backstory and methodology around kind of how we think about it a little bit differently than other orgs that are doing it. And so, yeah, that's what I'm working on, building
That's
it
beautiful.
little by little.
Because you've been doing this for a while now,
Yeah.
running different programs. And so I think you know a thing or two about this.
I like to think so. Yeah.
I want you to share a little bit. Not everyone knows who Alex Waters is, and you've been doing a lot of community work since at least 2018. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
So I kind of cut my teeth in ed tech years and years ago. I was in Maryland working at a company that scaled master's and doctoral programs. And so learned a lot about that. Then came to San Diego, started working with Startup Week, Startup Weekend, volunteering. And then there's a guy in the back with a hat on.
Andy?
His name is Andy.
Is that you, Andy?
Andy White. He
Don't be shy, sir.
There we go.
Get your flowers too.
There we go. And so he had spearheaded a program at the Downtown San Diego Partnership called the Collaboratory for Downtown Innovation. I think Andy named it that himself because he loved that very, very long name.
Wait, you didn't name it that? I thought you named it that, Andy. Who named it?
Andy's shaking his head right now for the camera.
But we ran some programs, 6 and 8 week workshops for early stage entrepreneurs. And then for the last 5 years, we were doing the same kind of thing at the Jacob Center with a business accelerator and just physical space for folks to come in and work out of. So.
What type of founders have you been working with in the last few years? Like, which type of founders have shown up to your programs, and which ones are you working with right now?
I think a little bit of everything. So we literally had everything from tech to professional services, food and beverage, nonprofits, because we really focused on sort of how to help people understand the fundamentals of building a business, right? Because regardless of, what businesses people might be working on, there are some fundamental things that you need to make sure that you have and have down and have just kind of doing well around those things. So that's what we did.
So what advice would you give to some of these early stage founders in their journey? Because, you've helped, I want to say at least, it's got to be in the millions by now, like of helping people get funding and with all the different, incubators you've thrown and people who've gotten money throughout the years. Give us one thing you would give as a piece of advice on what they should do in their foundation stage to really help them set them up for success.
Yeah, just do the boring stuff. The boring stuff is not the fun stuff. What's the boring stuff? The boring stuff is the back end office stuff. That's the financials. That's the making sure that you have, procedures and process. All that stuff sucks. I know because I hate doing it. Like I hate admin. I hate but that is a lot of times a differentiator as people, especially if you get to the point to where you can grow and scale. If all of that stuff isn't fixed, you're going to have to go back and fix it. So just do the boring stuff now, because that actually opens up the space for you to then actually be able to scale. Otherwise, it can be a real mess and derail, a lot of great businesses that people have because they're like, oh, well, I didn't do this, or I don't have to worry about my taxes. It's like, yes, you have to worry about your taxes. Even when you're not making any money, make sure that you're doing the things with your taxes, right? Because then if you do make a bunch of money 5 years from now and you got to go back and fix all that stuff, it's not what you actually want to be doing at that moment for your business to be growing. So yeah, all the boring stuff, just get it out of the way, find a pal to sit down and kind of crank through all that stuff. And that's what we really focused on. We were working at the Jacob Center. It's like the boring stuff that people are super excited about, but really help in terms of resiliency for business.
I want to double down on that too, because at Women's Venture Summit, I don't know if you stayed around for the final fireside chat. It was with Arian Simone from Fearless Fund and then also Elizabeth Gore from Hello Alice. She had the same advice. Elizabeth Gore shared about how if they had not prioritized their bail team, their processes, the law, taxes, all of that very early on, for those who don't know, they experienced a lawsuit this year that was widely covered across the nation. If they had not prioritized that from the jump, they would have had, she verbatim said that they may have not had a business at that point. And she has millions and millions of customers in their for Hello Alice. And so that I would just like to double down and emphasize truly what you are saying by saying that.
Yeah.
And so one thing I love story time.
Okay.
I would love for you to share a story that really just kind of demonstrates something that founders can learn in this room that really ties into what you're saying. So do you have a specific story that comes to mind of somebody you worked with? Don't have to name anyone, but just like that shows what you're doing is so important and why.
Yeah, I think about a couple companies, and I'll try to make it so that I don't say who the actual person is, but it was a company and they made a physical product and they had two versions of the physical product. One cost more than the other one. And so they were really trying to push to get people to buy the less expensive one that they were selling. But then they actually went through and looked at their numbers and realized they were losing like 7 cents for every smaller one they sold. And so they had this massive marketing push because it's like, oh, well, it costs, about 60% of what the larger one does, and people like it more and they want to do stuff. And then they really started digging into their numbers. This is a company that at the time was already doing about $150,000 to $200,000 in revenue. So it wasn't like they weren't making any money at all. They just had no clue what the actual numbers were for their products. And it sounds kind of crazy, but a lot of folks, I think, as entrepreneurs, they just go and do first and then figure it out later, which is beautiful. But sometimes if you have to make sure that what's actually happening. So when we sat down and really looked at it, I was like, you do realize you're losing money for every one of these that you sell. They were like, really? I was like, no, that's a problem. And then they fixed it. They actually wound up scrapping that particular product and going with the one that costs more, that less people were buying, but they were making money and a sizable amount of money off of those individual things. So it's, again, it's the boring stuff. Knowing the numbers is super important, especially for early stage folks, because you're just doing so much all the time, especially if you don't have a large team.
How many first-time founders are in this
First-time
audience?
founders.
First-time
Raise your hand.
founders. We got
There you
one,
go.
two,
Got one,
three,
two.
four. You don't people who are afraid to raise their hand, but I can kind of see some brushing of the face.
Okay,
Yeah,
three.
there we go.
Yeah.
I think that's what's a really amazing message, because you are doing so much, and I think it's really easy to forget that, and that type of etiquette can come later on at your second startup, third startup, fourth startup. But why not start now? And here you go, you're getting it for free right now. Is that
Dang.
advice?
$1 million worth of game, literally. So let's invite up some folks who have questions. So if you have a question, come on up to the mic right here and then ask your question.
This is the time to do it.
this is
This
the
is
time to
the
do
man
it.
to ask it. He charges a lot of money. I hope you do at least. For this type of advice.
The price just went up.
He's like, actually, we were also losing money, and so now we also raised our prices a little bit.
One thing I loved about watching you in different incubators, accelerators, and startup programs is that you're not afraid to ask the tough questions. What are one of the questions do you think is the toughest questions oftentimes that passionate entrepreneurs often fail to ask, and that trips them up every time because they didn't take the time to ask or answer that question, and then they have to go back and fix it? I know I'm assuming you're going to say boring stuff, but give me that story.
I think there's a couple different spaces, but one of the things that I think about a lot is do I actually want to be doing this? And that's a really tough one sometimes, because it's not about whether somebody has grit or determination, right? If you've been doing something for a while, you can kind of keep plowing through. But sometimes people have to really look and think, is the thing that you have now actually what you wanted back then? And if it's not, then do you still want to actually do it? Because there is a real opportunity cost, and people are working on different kinds of things and trying to build them if they don't actually want to do whatever it is. And that's perfectly fine. I always tell people this, especially the folks that you work with, the coaching, it's there's no value judgment. It doesn't matter to me whether somebody decides they want to build something or not, but they have to know. Because if they don't know, then they're just literally going to be running in circles, and it's going to wind up they're going to figure out how to sabotage themselves because they don't actually want to be doing the thing that they've created. They've created a little sort of, for I guess lack of a better analogy, a little closet that they trap themselves in.
Mm-hmm.
It's do I even want to be in this space anymore?
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard question to answer.
I want to expand on that because something that happened at that first startup week. So when we won the startup week, and after a while, I got the chance to get to know some of those angel investors and VCs there. And I thought there was other people that had a better product than what we were pitching. And I asked one of the VCs, and I said, what made you choose us out of all of the different folks? And it was they said it was because of the team, because the team was very of passionate individuals who truly cared about it. Versus the other team had maybe one person who was passionate about it, but the other two were kind of in it maybe for the money, or it didn't seem like their heart was in it. And so the team really makes a difference too, of passionate individuals who know their stuff and are correlating, I guess, really forming together. I don't know if you see that too from.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, teams are really important. I think you were going to say.
Oh, I was going to add on to it because I feel like it's so easy to disregard the whole discussion of the why. And it's like, oh, I don't want to talk about that marshmallow fluff, whatever. But it's like the reason why it's so important is I guess, for me, when I came from the investor perspective, it's like the why is so important because when things get hard and money's running out and all the things are going wrong, how motivated are you to persevere and keep going when those things happen? Because if I'm not even seeing it in the initial pitches in the early stages, then like, why would we invest in something that we already know the longevity of it is not going to work out? And so that's why the why is so important and what motivates you. It's because like when things get rough, are you going to back down? And if that's the case, how much funding have you received at that point that's going to go down to the dump? And so, and that's just what I wanted to apply what you're saying and why it's so important.
Because there's a thing that I think, and it's a kind of counterintuitive type thing, but there's a fantastic book called The Dip by Seth Godin. If you haven't read it, it's a great book, slight read, about 90 pages. But what it talks about is everyone thinks that like, you know, successful people don't quit things. And it's actually the reverse. People who are very successful figure out how to quit things quickly, right? And so like, if something's not working, quitting it is not like, that's not a failure. It's like, yo, I now have more time to do something else that will lead me to be successful longer term. And I think that that's a really important part that like sometimes people don't get or don't think about because they're like, well, if I quit, then that means I've like failed. It's like, no, you learned it just didn't work. And so you open up the opportunity and space for you to do something that's going to be even bigger. Because a lot of the stories, especially in tech space like that, like most people's first company is not the thing that gets them $1 billion. I know we see it all the time, right? But that's like not the reality. It's not what the numbers suggest.
It's the thing that's covered by the media the most, but not necessarily.
It's a great story, right? Somebody's sleeping on their friend's couch at Stanford and comes up with an idea, starts hacking away, and all of a sudden is a billionaire. Like, but that's not actually the reality when you look at the numbers and statistics of like where people are. It's normally much later in their careers after they've, you know, done a couple of businesses that didn't produce what they wanted to. Then now they're wiser, they're better, and they can kind of work on things in a very different space than what it is if they would have just kept at it. We've all met those folks before where like they're working on something and you're like, you should stop doing this. And they keep going and it's like, yeah, but
I'm not a quitter.
It's right. I got to keep going. It's like, this might not be your thing. You got all other talents and stuff, but this might not be your thing. So
any questions? We're going to close it down. All right. 3, 2, 1. Alex, how can everyone find you?
You can find me at the Program Labs. You can find me, I don't know, randomly getting coffee with people around town. If anybody does...
Favorite coffee place? Favorite coffee spot?
No, they closed down my favorite coffee spot, so I don't know if I have one now. It's like, I don't know, one of the Dark Horse Roasters, so I go to those around South Park. Just a quick thing. If anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, super into it. Love to connect with people. But I will send you a message to actually have a like virtual meeting or in coffee in person. Really trying to be intentional about like how more I'm building sort of networks and learning about what people do. And so if there are opportunities and ways to help, I can actually help you. It's not just like a random name on a list of a bunch of people. So just a heads up.
All right.
Give it up for Alex Waters, y'all. Give it up for Alex Waters.
Thank you very much.
Don't go anywhere yet. We're gonna take a picture.
We're gonna take a picture.
You want to wrap us up?
We're gonna wrap it up, but we'll get our picture before we go. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today and joining this live podcast. We've had such a fun time, and I hope you guys did too. Yeah. Every founder that joined us today. It's such an amazing moment to really just share what is going on in the community. And for those this is their first time at Startup Week, which there was a lot. These are just 5 faces that you've met today that you can always approach later on today. So
yeah, and we got to thank the founders' husbands and cheerleaders that came out this morning. Give the cheerleaders a round of applause.
All the advocates, champions.
Because you know, entrepreneurship is hard, it's lonely, it's a lot of different things, and you really need a good support team with you to keep you going. Make sure y'all connect with us. The QR code is here. We're gonna be trying to create little clips of this moment to share. Maybe
it was recorded. It will be uploading it on YouTube later on. Yeah. Share it with a friend. Share it with 10 friends, preferably, if you're asking me.
Tell a friend to tell a friend. So enjoy the rest of your startup weekend. Get you some food out there and mix and mingle and network. And remember, it's not what you know,
it's who you know.
I'll do you one better. It's who knows you. So make sure you network with enough people to get your name into rooms that your feet haven't even touched. That's our podcast for today.
Thank you
and good night.
Thank you.